Welcome back to Mass Appeal. Getting your kids geared up for fall sports can sometimes be difficult, especially after they spent the summer lying around. So what's the best way to make sure that they're ready to hit the fields again? Well, joining us with some tips is sports psychologist Dr. Kathleen Martin. She's the director of institutional research at Bay Path College.
Hello.
It must be tricky. And moreover, sports these days, even at the high school level, it's getting more and more complicated. It's getting more and more intense. It's tough out there. It's not like when I was a kid.
Well, it really is. But the good part is that the kids that are coming up through sport now are being parented by parents who were more likely to participate in organized sport when we were kids. So we have a different level of understanding about sport, and that can be a good thing or a challenging thing.
So you have some great tips for parents out there. The first tip, keep it enjoyable.
Yeah, enjoyable. Notice I didn't say fun. There are
true.
aspects of sport and of competition that just aren't fun but are necessary. But especially with younger athletes, we want to make sure that we're allowing for an experimentation in a lot of different sports, because part of the reason they participate is because we want them to be active for their lifetime. So we want them to be engaging in activities that they enjoy. And what's interesting is that we often do a better job of allowing our young girls to experiment than we do our young boys.
I guess you're right, because oftentimes boys and parents of boys are so much more focused on making them a star athlete, whereas girls don't have as many venues for professional sports, so maybe they don't think of it that way.
Well, and we look at it differently for girls and boys. It's much more competitive for boys generally, but we also tend to want our children to have a similar experience that we did in sport, and that doesn't always happen.
But no matter what, parents need to keep it positive, but moreover, they need to keep it productive.
That's right. If you think about some of the mixed messages that our young athletes get from adults, it's, well, we want you to go out and have fun, but our youth athletes are also aware of how the adults around them react when they don't win. And we've all been socialized that winning is good and losing is bad, but we have to help our athletes understand that there's good in every outing, no matter what the outcome is. So we like to focus on process, not just on outcome.
Sure, because oftentimes you can learn more from a tough loss than you can from an easy win.
That's right. So one strategy that parents can use with their kids is to talk after a practice or a game about what went well. What did you learn today? What are the things that you'll look back on as positives of this experience? And then talk about things that we might want to work on before the next outing.
You know what I think, too? That's a great parenting tip in general. I think it transcends sports. After a theater rehearsal, after you get the results of a test back, I think that really does translate through sports and into every aspect of parenting.
That's exactly right. And remember, too, that language is so important. What you say to your children, they will internalize and they will remember, and it begins to become how they talk to themselves during quieter moments of experiencing some level of anxiety before a test or before a game, before a practice, before a music audition. You want them to have good self-talk as opposed to negative self-talk.
Great point. And your next is to be realistic when you're parenting.
Right. When we're putting our kids in youth sport, there are a number of purposes for it. One is you want them to learn the rules, you want them to learn how to play a sport, but they're also learning incredibly important socialization skills. So while you're watching your child develop as an athlete, also watch the attitude. Watch how they're interacting with their teammates and with their coaches. Are they being a good team member? And again, they're learning the sport. They're not professionals, so there are going to be mistakes. There are going to be ups and downs, and talking with your children about those experiences is really important.
So being a great teammate at the end of the day in an office situation and interpersonal situations, it'll help you a whole lot more than winning that baseball game from 10 years ago, Will.
That's right.
Next tip, keep it respectful.
Yeah, this should go without saying, but we see a lot of examples of parents and coaches and athletes behaving badly. And we should come into every sporting situation with a basic level of respect for one another. We have to be realistic that coaches are going to make calls that we wouldn't necessarily agree with. Officials will make mistakes. Keep your boundaries, keep your control, and be level-headed.
And lastly, it's about your kids. It's not about you.
That's right. Your kids will want and will really benefit from your involvement in their sporting lives, but they're not going to have the experience that you did. And part of that is giving your child the freedom to say, no, I don't want to participate in organized sport. They have that right. They should still be active in some way, but they may not want to be on the Little League team, and that's perfectly fine. The other thing that's hard for parents sometimes is giving up a little bit of control. We want to protect our kids from hurt and pain and disappointment, but that's part of being in sport, just like it's a part of being in the world.
And it's that fine line, too, from pushing your children to get into sport or other activities, and at the same time letting them find it for themselves.
Right. We need to allow children to take some risks. They need to experience success. They need to experience failure. They need to find out what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy. It's all part of growing up.
Dr. Martin, thank you so much for these
Thank
tips.
you.
I'm sure you're going to help both kids and parents out there.
Thank you.
Ahead on